Hello and welcome to the Great Northern Game Night. I am your host Tony,
And I'm your co-host, Matt.
and we are here to talk about video games. So, a few things to get out of the way right up front. Obviously, there was no podcast last week. Um, we had some issues. Some personal stuff came up. We wouldn't have been able to do it until like Tuesday evening, and at that point, we kind of figured maybe we'll just hold off and, collect up some topics for the next week.
Yeah,
Now,
which we did.
yes, and on that note, I wanted to say that we talked a little bit and we've decided we're going to change up the format of the trade-in a little bit. Now, I came to this conclusion this week, and we'll get to this in the trade-in, but I did not play very much of my game. And a few factors went into that, but I think the biggest issue is picking a new game and having to play it for only like a week, but also have to play enough of it to talk about it. It's already starting to feel like kind of like a job more than
Like
something
work,
I
yeah.
want to do. I don't think, I mean, I've been picking kind of shortish games sometimes, but I feel like a week isn't really enough time. Because, I mean, we have other games that we play, and we're going to play those pretty much no matter what. So, along
Yeah.
with that, we both have full-time jobs. Well, part-time, full-time-ish, I guess. We don't work 40 hours. I don't think either of us work 40 hours a week, but we work decent
Sometimes.
hours a week.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do from now on, I think, is we are going to assign a game, and then the next week we will not have an official trade-in, and we will give ourselves 2 weeks to play these games. Now, the week that we don't assign a game or have a game to finish, we'll talk a little bit about our game. We'll give like impressions about it at the point that we're at. And then the next week after that will be the wrap up, and we'll talk fully about the games. We'll have a dedicated segment for them. But I think just giving an extra week it'll give us a better incentive to play the games. It
Yeah.
won't feel so much like work, like, oh my god, I gotta play some of that game today because there's only 3 days left until the podcast. Which I think that was a lot of the issue. It was kind of like, oh, this feels like work now because
Yeah.
I'm on such a tight schedule. I have to play the game and also like pay really close attention to things I might want to talk about the game.
And the thing
Uh,
is, we're not like at Giant Bomb or, Mega 64 levels of popularity, not quite. So we're not getting paid for this,
yeah,
which there's not much incentive other than that we would at least like to enjoy the games that we're playing. And we are, well, okay. I mean, some of the time we are, but we do want to make the effort to do this so we have something to talk about, and it's a lot easier if we have some time to actually kick back and do it. Like Tony pointed out, the schedule doesn't always permit when we only give ourselves a week. So hopefully now we'll have some more time. We can really get into the meat of these games that we're trying out.
yeah, and it'll still give us time to play the other games that we're gonna play anyway. So we're switching to a once every 2 weeks kind of schedule. Today, since we had 2 weeks with our games, today we're going to assign new games. So that would mean that next week there's not going to officially be a trade-in. We'll talk a little bit about the games that we're playing, but the week after that will be when we wrap those games up and assign new games. And I feel like it'll keep us from like stretching ourselves too thin, because we're going to at some point run out of good games that we
Yeah.
both played to assign to each other. And at that point, we're going to have to start picking new games and diving both of us into them. So I don't want to end up with too many, stinkers on the podcast. So
Yeah.
I think we'll try that out. We'll see how it works. Everything is pretty much still experimental at this phase. So things are going to get changed up. Formats are going to change. Segments in the show. That sort of thing. Maybe we'll add more segments at some point, like a monthly thing we do, but we're feeling it out. So for
Yeah,
now,
we're playing it by ear. It's
we're
kind
gonna
of up in
change
the
to
air,
that. Yeah, we're gonna change to that. See what happens. The first thing that I wanted to dive into. So Gamescom is, I think, still going on actually for a little bit of the rest of today. I don't know actually because they're in Germany, and it might already be Monday in Germany. I'm not actually sure of the time conversion,
It's
but
getting pretty late here. It might technically be
yeah.
Monday.
But so Gamescom was more like the Xbox show with a little bit of PC stuff. That's about what it amounted to. I didn't really see much for PS4 aside from things that are coming to the PS4 as well as the Xbox One and the PC.
Yeah,
It
not
really,
as much exclusivity.
really seemed like Microsoft was kind of the king of the show for Gamescom. One thing that I did want to talk about at Gamescom is Star Citizen. So they showed at Gamescom it was like a 14-minute video, and it was detailing the multi-crew piloting for Star Citizen.
It's so good. Oh my god.
So
I didn't see the panel that they were doing, or there's some kind of presentation before they showed the show of that zone, or the demonstration of that. But and apparently there were some problems. Not the first time that Cloud and Premium has had problems with the presentations, because they're pretty ballsy with that. They try and actually just run their demos live right on stage, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But at least they're being honest.
yeah,
But the actual presentation, once they got to that part, that was unbelievable. And this is something that they promised. That's always been a part of the game plan for Star Citizen from the very beginning, basically. But it's one of those things that always seems like kind of a pipe dream, when a developer will say something like that, and you just assume, oh, well, they're not going to finish this game for like 5 years, or it's crowdfunded, it's never going to go anywhere, or content always gets cut. And man, it's just really good to finally actually see something like that in game. That's been the most impressive thing about Star Citizen so far, I think.
For real quick, for anybody who doesn't know what Star Citizen is, it is like, I want to think of a humorous way to describe it. It's a game where you can pay tens of thousands of real dollars to get a really cool spaceship that you can't actually pilot yet.
Yeah.
And these people paid those tens of thousands like a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
Still don't really have
real,
access to that stuff.
If you think he's joking, he's not. There are 10,000, or there were, I don't know if there still are. This is a game where you pilot a ship, it's in first person, and you can buy ships. Or really the way it's supposed to be phrased is you can pledge towards the completion of the game if you really want the game to be made. And then as a reward for some of those pledges, they give you a ship. But realistically, you're buying ships. That's what it is.
Yeah, I want to say that when it actually comes out, it's supposed to be free to play, and you just start with like a really basic ship. And then you can earn money to buy the ship in-game with in-game money. I'm not 100% sure. You might have to buy in, and you get like a basic ship if you just buy the game.
Well, I think you have to buy in. I don't think they're doing a subscription, but I believe because they're supporting private servers, or at least they were. I haven't heard anything about that in a while, but they would leave it up to server owners if they wanted to have a subscription or not. That's, if I'm remembering correctly, because this is when I was reading up on the actual Kickstarter campaign, which was like 2 years ago or something. Yeah. That was originally the game plan. I don't think they're going to do a subscription fee for the official Cloud Imperium server, like the big persistent one that's going to be the main one. And then the Squadron 42, that's the single player campaign, and that, that might have been, man, I don't remember. Oh, so long ago. Memories.
It's so you can buy in for like $60 or something. It might be even less than $60, and you get like a basic ship.
I think it is. You can get it's not beta access or any of the early access, but there's a package that's like $30 or something, and you get a really basic starter ship. But it gets you the game. It buys you a copy of the game as well. And I don't know if there's any word on whether that's going to still be a thing when the game's released, or if it's going to go up or down, or what's going to happen with that. But it's pretty reasonable at the moment. A lot of people hear about the big pledges, like the $1,000, multi-$100 ships, and they think that's ridiculous. And it kind of is, I mean, I'm not going to spend that much money on a virtual ship when I could spend that much money on an actual car. But there are cheap packages available if you just want to play the game. You don't care about having, a massive Corvette right off the start. Which I think that kind of kills the fun for me almost. I mean, if I was super rich and I had the money to blow, then fine. But, I want to start small and progress and grow in the game, You got to
I can understand it, though, if you want to start out. Like, if you have a bunch of people playing and you're starting out with, like, a 40-seater ship, then the other people don't have to buy an expensive ship. But there are people, I'm talking people who have made multiple $10,000 pledges to get tons of those ships. Like,
yes,
I'm on the website right now. The cheapest that you can buy in at is $45, and that does give you alpha access. I think it gives you Arena Commander access at least. I don't know about the other modules. So the way that Star Citizen is working right now, this is not their plan for the official game, I don't think, but while they're in this alpha beta stage, they're releasing the content in modules. So there's like a dogfighting module where you can fight other ships. There's Arena Commander, which I think is like the module of the base game. So that's like the, I think.
Oh, no. Arena Commander is the dogfighting.
That's the dogfighting? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and there's the FPS module, because in Star Citizen it's not just ships. You're actually going to be able to exit your craft and walk around on foot. That I think they're calling it Star Marine, and that's not out yet.
Yeah, they've showed a video
but
of that.
It's coming up. It was actually supposed to already be released, but like all the other modules that they've released so far, they have delayed it. That being said, the other modules they've released are pretty tight for what they are. So I'm confident that it'll be good when they do release it. And the plan for them is at the end of this all, when all the modules are prepared, they're going to kind of tie them together into the complete game. So you have the seamless, package of everything, and you don't have to launch individual parts like they're doing with the. I guess is this a beta test? Is that what this is?
It's in alpha, I think.
Okay, all right, whatever they want to call it, early testing, early access.
So I think this base package gets you access to Arena Commander maybe right now. And it gets you beta access when the game goes into an actual beta.
Yeah.
It gets you the Aurora MR, which is like the middling ship. Like if you were playing an RPG, this is the human ship. It's like it has space to carry stuff, so you can use it as like a transport vessel, but it also has some combat capabilities. So if it comes down to it, you can fight. And that is that's their sort of basic package, but they have like tons of. I'm trying to pull up the ships right now because that's where the real money is.
They had packages for all kinds of ships. They've had some limited edition ones as well. Some of them were timed. Others they would only sell like a couple hundred of them, and that was it. Those were some of the more expensive ones. There were a couple ships that they were selling for like $2,000 US.
Yeah. So let's see here. There's an Idris frigate that you can buy. Oh, that one's not available. They might, I think for the bigger ships, sometimes they'll make them unavailable so that there's only certain times that you can get them, so that, not everybody is just packing this massive ship when they, and these are, I'm looking at like capital ships right now. I don't think any of those are actually in the game yet.
I don't think so. The biggest one is probably the carrier. I think it's the Bengal. Which I believe, well, actually, the Bengal wasn't originally going to be flyable in this game, but one of the goals in the Kickstarter campaign, as a stretch goal, was to make it flyable. And they were going to have some sort of system where you can't buy a Bengal and own it, but there would be a number of them just kind of placed in the world, because you're going to have about 50 star systems to fly between in this game. And people would fight for control over the Bengal cruisers. They'd be kind of like these persistent objectives that you could control, but not like build or buy. That's what the plan was originally. I don't know if it's changed since then. Because again, this is all from the Kickstarter campaign, like the start of the crowdfunding. Was it 3 years ago now? I think it's at least 2.
I think it's coming up on 3.
Okay. Yeah, it was a while back, and I know some things have changed during development, but they've been sticking to their game plan for the most part. If I remember correctly, like everything that they're doing was a part of the original plan in some shape or form.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of the more expensive ships you can't purchase anymore, or I'm just not looking at it right. It's not super important.
Yeah.
Basically, though, you can buy into this and pay like exorbitant amounts of money, and it's an interesting concept. There's a lot of worry among the people that have funded the game and detractors of the game that they're not ever going to finish the game, because the issue that they're suffering from right now, it looks like, is the more money they get, the more they want to put into the game. So they're starting to suffer. People are assuming that they're starting to suffer from really bad feature creep, which is just a term for you keep wanting to add more and more features to a game, and eventually you just reach the point where you never finish the game because you keep thinking of new stuff that you want to add and you can't actually keep up with the thoughts.
Yeah. Now, that's been a problem with some recent developers, particularly with crowdfunding campaigns. The notable one that I think everybody who's kind of involved in this sort of community is familiar with is, of course, Double Fine, where they had originally wanted to make this Would it be right to call it just an adventure game? Yeah, like that's what they've done before.
Are we
But
talking
they
Broken
wanted to
Age?
make Broken Age, yeah.
Yeah.
And they originally wanted to. They had a very clear plan. They knew exactly what they wanted to make, and they wanted a few $100,000 for their campaign. They ended up getting a lot more than that. They got $3.3 million, I believe, because this is Tim Schafer and Psychonauts and holy crap, he's
Yeah.
making another game, so let's give him some money. And then I don't know if he was, solely responsible for this, but Double Fine changed their whole game plan, and they decided, oh, well, we got all this money, let's make a way bigger game, let's do that instead. And then that's where that kind of problem happened, and they made it episodic, and then a lot of people felt like they just did not deliver at all. That wasn't
Yeah.
something that I was personally interested in, so I don't know how that panned out in the end, or even if it's still over. But I do know they were releasing Broken Age in episodes, and I don't even know if they're done yet.
Episode 2 has come out
Okay.
recently. It took them over a year to finish the second episode after the first, I believe. And I don't know how many episodes they're planning, but it's a fucking point and click adventure. I mean, it took
Can it be
you
that hard?
it took you a year to make not even the rest of the game, just an extra part of the game.
Yeah, and consider that progress to Star Citizen. I know they got 50 times as much money. I'm just saying, same length of time. And the excuse, by the way, was that they are. I think they're based in San Francisco. That's where all their developers are. Double Fine, or some upscale place like that, and the cost of living is super high. And so a lot of people were confused. So if you look at a game like Broken Age, and you look at the graphics and how complex all the game mechanics are, and you think, how could they possibly screw this up? When you could look at a game like The Witcher or The Witcher 2, which are made on a budget of a few $1,000,000, not much more than what Double Fine got, and are these spectacular 60-hour long AAA RPGs. And it's because the cost of living over in Poland is next to nothing. But that was the actual problem that he cited with it just costs way too much to pay developers there.
We're taking donations to move to Poland, by the way.
Yeah, just so you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like at this point, Star Citizen has such a massive budget. It really does look like it's being made backed by a major publisher.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
So they showed a little. We didn't really talk about the multi-crew thing. We got so.
Oh yeah.
By the way, the Javelin is the $2,500 ship that you were able to buy. It was only available around Christmas of last year, and they only sold, I want to say 5,000 of them. So that's those any ship that you buy over $1,000, you can't actually sell. So they're bound to your account.
Yeah.
So I'm sure people will try to sell their accounts at some point, but that is against the terms of service, so don't do that. So they showed a video. The video that they showed at Gamescom, it shows the multi-crew stuff, and it doesn't really show I mean, you look at it, and if you didn't know it was showing off multi-crew functionality, you would have no idea what was really going on. It would just look like a Star Citizen video.
Yes.
So
now,
it's
that was because they kept cutting between the cameras from the different players. I think they had a crew of maybe 4 or 5 on the ship. And by the way, that scenario was amazing. They had the crew on the original boarding vessel, and it was 4 or 5 guys. And you could see that even though the graphics are pretty and everything, the animations are still kind of jerky.
I think it was
hallways and stuff.
I think it was 6 guys, but I think one stayed with the boarding vessel to pilot it back or something.
Yeah, one would have had to stay behind.
So, yeah, you can tell that it's kind of in its beta, but so they fly this. It's a really it opens up with the guy. He gets up out of bed in this space station, and he opens the shutters on his window, and he looks out, and they obviously they're showing off a lot of the graphics. He's looking out his window at the planet skyscape out there. And then he walks out into honestly, the place that he walked out into reminds me a lot of the Presidium. From the part that you see in Mass Effect 3 when you dock the ship, it reminded me of that a lot. But he looks at this map and he's looking around, and it cuts to another person's perspective, and they follow him into this airlock, and they take this boarding vessel and they put it into quantum drive or whatever. I don't remember what it was called.
That was it. They called it a quantum drive, which doesn't make any sense, by the way. But, yeah,
it moves you so fast you're moving through time. But so they fly out to this asteroid belt, and then they get out of the ship and they spacewalk across the asteroid belt to this bigger ship.
Now that was my favorite part. I have to say this real quick. So in this game, you have your crew, 4 or 5 guys, your buddies, whatever, people you hired in game maybe, and there's no interface where you open up a menu and then click OK, exit ship. Like that's not how it works. And this is how it works in pretty much every other game that I can think of that is a flight or a space flight simulator. Where you have an eject button or something.
One of my main complaints about Elite Dangerous is that almost all of that stuff is just done through menus.
Yeah.
Like that's I couldn't really like I feel like I need a flight stick to get into Elite Dangerous, but like instead of just like I mean you can fly around, but it's kind of aimless. Like you're not going to find much if you're just flying around by yourself. You have to like open up menus, pick a planet system that you want to go to. When you're in the planet system, you look to your left and there's like a console with all the planets and thing, and you click on one of those to bring up a waypoint. It's all kind of like it's like a menu game. Like half the game you spend in menus.
There was going to be some of that in Star Citizen. You have to have some kind of interface, right? Or else it's going to be too clunky. Fable 3. But in this game, you just walk to the exit of your ship and you get out and you spacewalk to the other ship. You fly over there. You got little jets on your armrest. You can kind of control your flight, and you literally approach the hatch on the other ship, and then you get in. And I would assume if it's a manned vessel, like an enemy ship, you'd probably have to break in or something. They'd have some kind of security, I would imagine. But this particular one, it was like an abandoned ship. And there was nobody else on board. But, and you didn't just have to get into the ship. They boarded it, and then they had to kind of, turn on your flashlight, look around, restore power to the vessel. That's amazing. That's so deep. That is unbelievable. That was what excited me the most about this. It wasn't even like the cooperative fighting. Because you have one guy in the cockpit piloting the ship around, and then people can get into gunners' turrets and stuff like that, and kind of look after everything else. And there was someone who was at some kind of station, and it was like a subsystem monitoring station. Like they had no picture of the combat area. I guess they weren't looking out into space. They just had a computer panel in front of them.
And there was one guy, he must have been on the bottom of the ship in some kind of turret thing, because like most of his view, like you can't see anything, and then the bottom half, you can kind of like see what he's doing, and it looked like it would be incredibly hard to actually aim. But I think that he was like in the bottom of the ship, like in one of those bubble turrets in the bottom where you're like sitting in a glass bubble just shooting around.
That's right.
I mean, the multi-crew fighting stuff, I mean, I didn't see anything there that was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, it was all kind of standard what I would expect. Like, there was one person piloting the ship around, and everybody else was in different gunner seats. Like, one guy was in, like, some kind of rapid fire. I don't want to call it a machine gun seat, because obviously it's not shooting bullets in space. But one guy had, like, this rapid fire station. Another guy, he was shooting, like, lasers, and it was a little slower. And then right at the end, somebody fired a missile at the enemy ship. I think they had to bring bring its shields down or something so they could hit it with a missile. But right at the end, somebody launched like this big photon missile or something at the ship. And I mean, that stuff was kind of stock standard, but like just the possibilities of the multi-crew thing, like combat's not the only thing that you can do in Star Citizen.
Oh,
so.
No.
You could have like a multi-crew mining vessel where like multiple people are running different subsystems on the ship. And they did announce that to start with during this beta thing before their persistent universe is introduced, because it's going to have a persistent universe, but it does not yet. But for the persistent universe, this multi-crew thing is going to be like, any ship that has more than one crew seat, you can do that in. But for now, it's going to be a module during the beta. It's going to be its own self-contained module with different scenarios that you can play out, but it's not going to be like an open world thing right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And I was worried at first because when I read them talking about that module thing, I thought that was like discussion about the actual game. I was like, so during like the normal game, you can't multi-crew these ships?
Yeah.
But no, that's just a module that they're doing during the beta. It looks really cool. As someone who's terrible at like piloting space vehicles and air vehicles, it's great because I can be like a gunner for somebody or like run a mining drill and I don't have to pilot my own ship.
The gunning part, that'll actually be kind of interesting to see how that plays out, because if you're in a single player game and you have complete control of the ship, you can anticipate where you need to shoot because you have control of both, your gun, but also the flight path of the vessel. You're going to need to actually communicate with your pilot in this game, because he's going to be jiving and juking, and then your whole kind of field of view is going to be moving around totally out of your control, and you have to anticipate that.
Yeah.
That I think is going to be the source of a lot of entertainment and also a lot of frustration, particularly for players that are just kind of hiring mercenaries who aren't really, if they're not your
Yeah.
friends, you're probably going to have a really hard time with this.
At
Or
the
even
same
worse if it's
time,
the AI piloting.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, I like the idea because if you've ever like played a game where you're piloting a ship, like a spaceship or a plane, and also trying to shoot, it's like you can only pay half attention to each part.
Yes.
So like you'll be really focused on shooting a guy, and like you won't be paying attention. You'll crash into something because you're not really looking at like what you're piloting. So the idea of having like a dedicated pilot, I really like, and this is really similar. I don't know if you know anything about Guns of Icarus. Guns of Icarus is a multiplayer game, and it's like you pilot these steampunk airships, but it's
Yeah.
like I think it's either 4-on-4 or 5-on-5. But you have like a pilot, and then you have people running around as like engineers and stuff, like repairing certain parts of the ship, and they can jump in turrets and start shooting. It's one of those games where like you crew a ship with multiple people, and everybody has a different job. And it's not super polished, Guns of Icarus. I've played like a little bit of it. It's pretty fun, but I can't imagine playing it without a full crew to pilot a ship. Like I can't imagine playing it with just a bunch of random people.
It seems like you'd need it. It would be like playing, Dota or something with half a team, right? Like you'd need everybody to chip in because that's a lot of fun when that happens. Yeah.
Degaroth mentioned Guns of Icarus right before I started talking about it.
Yeah, I saw that.
But yeah, I want to move on from Star Citizen because we're running low on time and we still got some other topics. We have been playing a new game. It is
Yes.
a free-to-play MMO, still in alpha or beta or one of those things, and it is called Skyforge. Skyforge, the best way that I can think to describe it is it's like a mix of Terra, the MMO, and Warframe, which is a free-to-play game.
Oh yeah.
And it's an action-based MMO, so like it's not completely action-based like Terra. There are moves that you still have to dodge, but like if you're looking at an enemy, you're gonna hit them. Like you don't have to specifically be like right up on them, looking perfectly at them. It's like a hybrid targeting action MMO, really. And it plays kind of like Warframe. Like you've got these abilities. Some of your abilities can combo. There's lots of different like aspects of character classes. One of the big things for this game is you only get one character, but you can play any class on that character, but not right away. So
Yes.
the other big thing about Skyforge is it has basically what is like the Final Fantasy X sphere grid, if you've ever played Final Fantasy X. So you pick a starter class. There's a support class, a DPS class, and a tank class. And you pick one of those, and you starting out, you earn these things and you get your abilities, and then you earn a thing called the Ascension Atlas. And when you open that up, it brings up this massive grid of like skills that you can get, and they all require. There's multiple different currencies that you can get. They're called sparks, and there's like 3 different colors of sparks, and you use those to buy the nodes in this sphere grid, basically. So the way that you get new classes is you have to find their node on the sphere grid and work your way over to it to unlock the class. And different classes have different costs. They're further away from the starter classes. So like some of the most expensive classes, I mean, they're like way far away from your starter class. You're going to have to play a long time.
You look at that map, and there's weekly limits on how much of that progression you can do. So some of these classes, the farthest ones, they're weeks away. It would, or at least a couple weeks of like dedicated play hours every day, so you hit your weekly limits on the progression that you can earn.
Yeah, that's the thing. Those limits, I've seen people complain about them, but they're pretty high. You would have to grind a lot. And it's kind of like a Korean MMO. I mean, there's a bunch of grinding to happen, but it's pretty fun actually. I think at least it can be frustrating.
It's good. I've actually been feeling a little bit burned out recently. Like the last time you and I played, pretty much, I realized that I do have one actual beef with this game. Everything about it is good, as far as I can tell, except the problem that I'm running into, at least with my class. I don't know about you. I primarily play the Paladin class, which is kind of a sword and board sort of character. Every fight, except for those couple of boss fights that we do, they all play out the same for me. Yeah. Every single one. It's starting to feel a little samey, and that wouldn't be a problem if I could actually change to a different class. But the problem is I only have progression in Paladin. So, and I haven't even unlocked any of the classes. You and I are still on the way to getting our first extra class unlocked. And I think that's kind of what they intend, is that with the system they have where you can swap between classes easily, That when you get bored of one, you just switch it up and go to something else. But the problem is like getting there, even to that first class, is really starting to tire on me.
Yeah, and
The individual fights are fine. Like the gameplay has no real standout flaws to me. I'm just doing so much of the same over and over now that it makes me want to wait.
the boss fights are awesome though. Like we've been getting into these really cool boss fights. They have like we're talking like WoW. If you've ever played World of Warcraft, we're talking like raid boss mechanics in these, and they're not even like dungeons in Skyforge. They're just regular missions that you're doing. But the bosses have like these patterns that you have to pay attention to. Like the last real boss that we fought, we fucked up and died the first time.
We did. If you're not careful,
she's got like
she could get you in like 2 or 3 hits.
Yeah, she's
pretty good.
She like empowers these eggs, and then she does this big wave attack. And if the wave attack hits the eggs, they hatch and get all these adds into the fight, and then you're screwed. So it's like there's all these cool mechanics to the boss fights. But yeah, like when you're fighting the normal enemies, I mean, I'm playing the Lightbinder, which is the support class, and I start the fight off by using this ability I have that pulls all these enemies in, and then I just spam my AoE. I have like 2 abilities that I can use that do a bunch of damage, and that's about it. Like, so it's pretty samey. I will say this is the prettiest MMO that I've ever played.
It is really good.
The graphics are amazing in this game. There's like you can like the first thing that we ever noticed, like there's these big region areas. You'll get missions that are in these region areas, and they're a lot bigger than the normal mission areas, and they're open world, so like other players, you can see them, you can interact with them. Because most of the missions are instance to you and your party. There's no other players in there. You just bring a party in and you like progress through the instance. But these region areas are big, open. The first one that we went to was like this floating island, like high above this planet. And like you go to the edge of the island, you can see the planet like down below, like really far under you. Like you look up at trees and you can see sunbeams like shining through the trees. And I mean, I don't have the graphics maxed out. I don't really think that my system could handle that. They're fairly high, but
it's worth pointing out that this game is running on the developer's own proprietary engine. It's not like Unreal 4 or anything like that. I don't know what it's called, but it is their own system. This game is actually developed by the Alads team. I think that's how it's pronounced, Alads or Alads or something like that.
Online,
but they made, they're the guys behind Alads Online, a Russian developer. And I'm pretty impressed. I never played the first game that they developed, but having played this, you know, I'm hooked. Other than the problem I mentioned before.
Yeah, I can't until like there's some other things that they need to iron out, like. You don't actually gain levels. You earn those sparks, and then you have a prestige level. And as that goes up, more and more stuff unlocks. And you gain prestige by unlocking these nodes or equipping new gear. The gear has prestige levels on it. The problem is, we're both at around 2,300 prestige. Matt and I are less than 100 prestige apart, yet we cannot group and do missions right now because our prestiges are too far apart. And they're fixing this, actually. I will note that on the 11th, there's a patch coming out that removes the prestige requirements. But, I mean, as it is, you know, we've been playing the game mostly together, and we have almost the same prestige level. He's like 2 item drops ahead of me, basically, and like maybe a node on the skill tree. And that prevents us from grouping together. For some missions, for some of them, we can still group. Like, we went on a mission last time we played, but the mission after that, we didn't gain anything through that mission. But the mission after that, we couldn't do. So it's definitely got some kinks to iron out, but I'm fairly impressed. It's pretty good.
And it's a new game as well. Like, it just came out of closed beta. It's not by any means a finished title, so there's still some, like you said, there's some kinks to iron out, but it's not a case of like an older game where there's problems with it that have just been ignored. And they're definitely putting a lot of work into it. It does have a lot of nice features that are outside of the traditional MMO standard. And I don't feel entirely comfortable calling it an MMO specifically. There's not an overworld.
Yeah,
you know,
there's no
like
real
you said,
overworld.
it's all instance-based.
Like it's like Warframe. That's where it's like Warframe.
It's like Warframe. It's like Vindictus. Like you don't have hundreds and hundreds of players in the same zone at any given time. Instances can be, I think they have group content for up to 10 or 20 players at a time for PvP.
It's actually,
that's pretty much it. Or is
comparing it to Vindictus is like perfect because it follows the same kind of traditional thing as Vindictus. There is kind of like this hub town in the game. Like you're in this space station or whatever, and you can see people in there. Like you can look around and see them, but there's nothing to actually do in that hub world. Just like Vindictus, you can walk around the town. There's people in Vindictus, but you can't like do much beyond maybe interact with them a little bit.
Yeah, they do have these smaller sort of sub overworlds, I want to call them, and those are the regions that you were mentioning earlier. But they're not, and you can go around and there's quests you can pick up in these regions, but they're not large areas. They're not anything, approaching the size of a typical MMO overworld. No, nowhere close. But it works well for what the game does, though. I think it doesn't really need that. It seems to be a good fit the way they have it.
Yeah. I'm probably not going to play it again until the 11th when they fix that. And there's going to be other stuff in that patch as well. But it's pretty good. I haven't really burnt out on it yet, but I'm also like a lifetime MMO player. You're not really into the MMOs usually.
I don't have the mental calluses yet.
Old Republic was pretty much the only one we got into, and that's like the story stuff is what hooks in that game because it's pretty stock standard MMO gameplay.
Yeah, like we've never. I don't know about you, but I've not done any grinding at all in that game. It's just been story mission to story mission to story mission. That's it.
Yeah, and they made it so you can do that. Before you could not do that. You did have to grind. You had to do all these boring side quests. But
no, that's ending soon. By the way, just to divert for a sec, I think they're only doing that bonus experience until September, or maybe the end of September.
Yeah.
But it's almost over. So if you're an Old Republic player or a prospective Old Republic player, you should get in on that before it's too late and you're forced to suffer through the grind again.
Maybe we should go back and
we should probably finish it up, yeah.
There's a new WoW expansion coming out. I don't really want to talk about that all that much because you don't play WoW. They showed some pretty cool stuff, but nothing like, oh my god, mind-blowing, crazy. They're claiming that they're trying to get back to like the expansions that were a lot better received because their last two expansions have not been very well received.
Now, I know I don't play WoW, but I always see it talked about whenever there's a new expansion or new content coming out, and I feel like they always say that. Like they always want to get back to the success of but what was the popular one? Burning Crusade.
Crusade. Wrath of the Lich King was fairly popular. That was my favorite. Most people's favorite is the first expansion, Burning Crusade, though.
Okay.
A lot of people liked Burning Crusade was like your favorite if you liked to do PvP and you liked really hard raids. Wrath of the Lich King was your favorite if you just liked like a variety of raids and general like overall really good gameplay, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. They're adding like a new class and stuff. I'll go back. I'm sure I will. I always do when an expansion comes out to at least try it out, level up to the new cap. They're raising the level cap again. They had 100, man. They had like a perfect rounded number. Now it's 110. Such a weird number.
Is this the last expansion, or are they gonna keep doing it as long as they can?
They were supposed to. They claimed like a while back that they only had one more expansion to go, and then they switched actually to like yearly expansions. So they're trying to push out more expansions. They want to do them yearly, and like I imagine if they start doing them yearly, they'll be smaller expansions with slightly less content. I don't know, like
that sounds like Activision. Yeah.
They were gonna do like a new MMO, and then they scrapped that. They had this project called Titan, and it was supposed to be their new MMO.
I remember that.
They junked it, and now they're just doing expansions for WoW still. Which, I mean, I don't mind it if the lore doesn't... Like, the last WoW expansion... So let me explain what happened in the last WoW expansion. This is WoW expansion for dummies. This is for people who have no experience with WoW. So, in the expansion before the last one... This guy turns into a bad guy, and you spend the whole expansion fighting him. At the end of the expansion, he goes back in time through a portal to an alternate universe version of the world. And you follow him through that portal. And the most recent expansion is basically, here's a lot of stuff that's happening. None of it actually affects any of the lore because you've gone back in time, and this is an alternate universe where none of this is actually happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
That makes it feel good.
That's pretty much how the last expansion went. So the lore was garbage for the last expansion. And they're going back to like the normal world for this next expansion. They're going to like lore that has existed in the game before. So we'll see. I'll have some reports on it when I play it, I'm sure. I did want to talk We'll talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the International 5, which is the Dota 2 tournament that just wrapped up yesterday.
Yeah, let's touch on some esports. So let's do that.
For people who haven't watched it yet, I don't want to spoil anything, but the grand finals were yesterday. The game did conclude, and one team did win $6.6 million for playing a video game. Now, on a 5-person team, obviously there's going to be some money taken out for like coaches and staff on the team, and some significant taxes taken out, but each person on that team won almost $1 million for playing Dota 2. And I know you don't know much about Dota, and I don't really want to talk about MOBAs all that much. I want to focus on the aspect of like the fact that esports is being legitimized as a career at this point. Like,
yep.
Not just Dota either. Pretty much any game you play. At Gamescom, Microsoft announced some Halo Championship with $1 million prize pool. Like, the fact that so much money is being pumped into this, like, it's almost more lucrative than being like a real sports star. It requires a lot less physical work. The bar for entry is a lot lower. The potential for making money is a lot higher.
Well, I don't know about that for like compared to professional sports. And I'm talking like the top level, you know,
the max money
NHL,
you can make
MLB, right?
Lower, but
yeah. Now that being said, physical exertion versus money earned is probably a lot more because you get to go into an arena and just sit, and that's it.
Now, I think it's a cool thing that being able to play video games as a living is starting to be a thing. I do worry that it's going to bring about this massive wave of games that are focused exclusively on, like, you could play this game as a job. Here's a game that we made, and it's got competitive aspects, and now it's a job for people. Because I'm not really, like, I play some MOBAs. We've been playing Heroes of the Storm recently, actually. I'm not really that much of a competitive gamer. I don't really enjoy it that much. I used to play League of Legends a lot. Like, I played League of Legends for a good year and a half, and I stopped playing it when I reached the point where even when I was winning, I wasn't having fun because I didn't feel like I was playing as well as I could. I was getting angry at my teammates. I have a really bad like temper issue when it comes to games like that, and so I try my best to avoid them as much as I can.
Now, let's be clear for a second, though. There have been tournaments for a long time. And everybody, anybody who is vaguely aware of this it's kind of common knowledge. Yeah, there's lots of different FPS tournaments, Quake, right, Counter-Strike, fighting games have been huge. RTSs, those have been huge.
I will say, if you look at the top 35 earners in esports history, all but one of them is a Dota 2 player, and the one player that is not a Dota 2 player is a StarCraft Brood War player. That is the first StarCraft, by the way. This person does not. This is not even including this person's earnings for StarCraft 2, but he's 30th on the list for StarCraft 2 with like a little over $600,000. But this guy played StarCraft 1 for like 12 years. So it took him that long to accumulate this much money. And now the 6th highest esports earner is a 16-year-old Dota 2 player who has only got one win on record on this esports site that you can look at, and it is this Dota 2 tournament. So
I think the big difference that's happened now with this whole, like, with the tournament scene becoming more of a professional thing than it's ever been is the fact that it's being televised. That makes a massive difference. Like, you can go onto, I don't think it's on the regular ESPN channel, not yet, but definitely ESPN2. Yes. Yeah. And this is a legit, it's ESPN. It's friggin' sports channel on TV.
I think
you can go there and you can watch esports being played.
I want to say ESPN, like the base channel, mentioned Dota, and I know that there was a Heroes of the Storm tournament for college players that was broadcast fully on ESPN2. All of it.
College Heroes.
Heroes of the
Dorm. Like college football.
Heroes of the Dorm.
Heroes of the Dorm.
That's
right. Yeah.
Yep.
I remember that.
And the winners earned free college tuition. So, but that was broadcast like fully on ESPN2, that entire tournament. So it's crazy to think. And the Dota 2 tournament, do not think that Valve fronted this $18 million that was the prize pool. Valve started it at $1 million, and they sold what is called a compendium in Dota 2. This allows you to watch the tournament matches. It gives you like some extra items as it levels up. You can level it up through playing. It's got all that. You can make like predictions for the main event. they sold enough of this, and I think it's like 25% of the price of a compendium goes to the prize pool. They sold enough of these to add another $17 million to the... These things cost $10. So each one of those sold is $2.50 towards this prize pool. And they managed to sell enough of those to get $17 million towards the prize pool. Think about how much money that is for Valve. That's, I mean,
well, hang on,
something like $40 million.
On that note, it's probably just a drop in the pond compared to what they've earned from fucking hat sales. Okay. Oh, yeah. So this isn't exactly, foreign territory for them. I think they probably just realized, hey, people like to buy our cosmetic crap so much. Let's do a tournament. I think that's how that started. I'm so sure.
Well, the tournament started way before the cosmetic stuff. This was just like, I mean, the first tournament, I think, had a $1 million prize pool. Funded completely from Valve. Yeah. And then they came up with this idea that you can just pay money, and part of it goes towards the prize pool, which is a really cool idea. A lot of people are like, oh, Valve is really cheap. They're just making the community fund the prize pool. I don't really think so. It's a way for people to support the legitimacy of this as a job. Like, when you buy a compendium, you're not just supporting like the team that you like for Dota 2. You're supporting every team that's in that tournament, basically, because everybody that made it to the main event of this tournament got some money. I think 16th place got like $52,000, which it's not much, but I mean, it's still something. All they had to do was show up, basically. They had to get through like qualifiers and stuff, but at the end of the day, in the main event, all they had to do was show up and play a game. And like, if they lost it, they lost it. They still got 52 grand. So,
and you know what else? Like, look at regular sports, okay? If you want to go down and you want to watch a hockey game, you want to watch a baseball game, yeah, you can watch it on TV or whatever. But if you want to be there, you buy a ticket, right? You have to pay for admission. That's where this money comes from. I mean, there's sponsorships, and there's advertisement revenue and stuff like that. But if I want to go down and like watch a Jays game tomorrow, right? I have to drop, if I want a decent seat, probably maybe anywhere from like $50 to $150 on a ticket just to go and watch for a couple hours, right?
Yeah.
That's why I don't see a problem necessarily with this compendium thing. I mean, it's a video game, so you get the same experience if you're watching it on a stream, like people might be watching our show, versus if you're actually there in the arena. That being said, if you're there in the arena, you're in the friggin' arena. Like, you're there with... It is sort of a different experience in that respect. I guess you're not watching MLB players play, like, MLB 15 on the Xbox. You're watching them play baseball. So there's that difference. But the experience of being in these arenas, that I think is what drives people to go down and actually watch. Like, they want to be involved, I suppose, and that's really what it is. I think people want to feel like yeah, I contributed to that. Like, I'm a part of this, and that's probably a big portion of it. But that's why I don't feel like there's anything wrong with them doing the compendium, even though it's like, yeah, there's gonna be people who are, oh, it's Valve, they're making so much money, they're selling useless virtual crap. What are they doing? They're so greedy. But it's got to be supported somehow. There needs to be some kind of revenue if they want esports to actually be a sport and not just a thing that people sometimes stream online for free.
Yeah, and
so that's what'll make it take off.
That ticket thing that you mentioned is a good point. Degroth mentioned this in the chat. You can watch it without buying the compendium on like Twitch, but buying the compendium enables you to spectate the game in the Dota client.
From the client, yeah.
First of all, it's great for me because I'm not burning nearly as much bandwidth. Because if you've ever played like TF2 or anything, you know that you can record demo files. And basically, the replay system kind of works the same way. So a demo file for like an hour-long TF2 game would be like 40 megabytes. Because it's not saving a video of the game. You are put in the game as like a spectator. And you're watching the game happen as like an invisible player within the game. Yeah. So all saves, the bandwidth that you're using, you're getting like a bunch of numbers sent to your computer, and those numbers are being translated into what it should show you in the client. I did want to mention, actually, so the tournament was held in the Key Arena in Seattle, which has a 17,000 person capacity, 17,000 and some change. I've seen pictures from the grand finals of people that took pictures of the stands. It is packed. Like, you can't see empty seats. It looks like people are watching a football game in there. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, they packed this 17,000 capacity. And I mean, if you look at the streams, there's like 150,000 people watching. Like, easily 150,000. That's not including people in the client. That's not including the different language streams. There's a Russian restream with like Russian commentators that gets as many viewers, if not more, than the English one. When a Russian team is playing, that Russian one has like 100,000 more viewers than the English one. So it's crazy, like, to think that this is a career now. People are able to play video games as an actual career now. Like, before there were like StarCraft tournaments and stuff, but if you weren't winning every StarCraft tournament, you weren't living off of your StarCraft earnings. You still had to earn money in other ways.
Yeah.
And a lot of people did that through streaming, and they would get like donations through their stream and stuff. But at this point, like, you win one tournament in Dota, and you've got like enough money to last you a few months while you try and win another one.
Yeah, and that's traditional like tournament style winnings too. I mean, regular sports, you have professional players that just sign a contract to play. I mean, ideally they'll win and they'll do their best, and hopefully it was a good investment. But they get paid just to participate.
Oh, and
I mean at the professional level, so they I guess they're worth the money. But these are multi-million-dollar contracts these guys sign.
Yeah.
For MLB, actually, a friend. I'm not big into baseball, but a friend of mine was telling me about how this works. There are MLB teams that will pay millions of dollars to try and basically hire over players from Japan to come over and play in the MLB, like just for the privilege of talking to these guys.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even really bank on, okay, you have to win and then we'll pay you. And I think esports are going to be approaching that. I mean, they already
sort
get
of
sponsorships
are.
and stuff.
So
right?
Here's how it usually works. Like, they'll get sponsorships, and you're not getting necessarily like paid. Now, League of Legends, they have the system that League of Legends has in place. These teams are signed on by Riot for like a year, and after a year, if you did bad, you might get relegated down to like their minor league, basically, where you're not getting paid. But these people they're not getting paid depending on their winnings. Like, the only tournament that really happens for League of Legends, like their big tournament, is the main championship series that they have. And this is like, it's a season thing. This is like League of Legends is more like real sports than the Dota scene. Dota is like a bunch of tournaments, and you progress through the tournament, you win the tournament, you get money. League of Legends has like a weekly, like every week, all these teams that are in this thing, it's called the LCS, the League Championship Series. And they play each week. A team plays a different team. They have standings. It's like a season. And at the end of the season, there's playoffs and there's a championship. But these people are getting paid a salary to participate in this. Yeah. So, like, they're earning money whether they win or not. The team that loses, they might get kicked out and have to, like, work their way back up the next year and figure out something to do for money. But, I mean, they could lose every game and they're still getting paid the same amount minus the tournament winnings at the end of the season.
Oh, yeah.
The other teams are getting paid.
Like with real sports, I mean, from the perspective of the people that are actually funding all of this, the people who own the teams, whoever pays the players and so on, esports or not, the point is just to generate, like ticket sales and ad revenues, to generate more cash for the owners or whoever. So they don't really care who wins as long as people come out to actually watch them play. And that's, that's got to be where it's headed. Like you said, it's already started. Eventually it'll get to that point.
League of Legends worth a little bit less money than Dota in terms of just like raw money, and that's because Valve went to the crowdfunding basically type of thing for their reward. But League of Legends, that's like a job. Playing League of Legends professionally, it's more like an actual job. Like, you have to show up every week, you have to play games at the specified times, you're playing in a season, so you're trying to make it into the playoffs, there's an off season, you're living in a team house, getting paid money, you've got like a professional coach with you. Yeah. Like, when you watch League of Legends professional stuff, even if you don't like League of Legends, you have to admire, it's like, it's a sport, basically. Like, Dota is a bunch of tournaments, and like, obviously you have to practice, but most of the practice happens on your own time, playing like solo queue in Dota. League of Legends, they have like skirmishes, practice. You got to practice like in the team house. It's like, you're wearing shirts with like your sponsors' logos on them and stuff.
Yeah.
And when you watch, it's like totally like watching a sports game. Like, they have an analyst desk, and Dota has this for their tournament too. They have an analyst desk, they have commentators. Dota really has like, and I think League of Legends might have it too. They have a play-by-play color commentator who is the one that gets you really excited when like a fight's going on. They're yelling out everything that's happening in the fight. And then you have the analyst who is more like a calm, and like after the fight happens, they explain like, well, this person did this in the fight. That's why this happened. This is why they bought this item. They bring the knowledge, and then they've got somebody to bring the hype with them. and it works really well. So I'm both excited and also hesitant at the future of esports as a job, because I'm really worried that like games that I want to play are going to go in that direction, and it's going to be hard to play them if you're not interested in playing them competitively as like a job.
Well, the way that they're sold, say, I don't mean sold, you know, in the literal sense, but like the way they're presented to people, particularly people who aren't already fans of them, that's going to be a huge part. And I know we need to go on to the trade-in real quick. I just want to mention this one last thing. Um, I saw a clip of some of the ESPN footage of, I think it was the Dota tournament or whatever it was they were showing. This is maybe a couple weeks ago, and there were the ESPN guys, the hosts of that particular show, and they were showing the clip and they were listening to the footage, and I'm sure it must have been for the first time. I don't think they saw this footage beforehand. They were getting super excited because the commentators in the actual like the esports were getting people pumped up. And whenever I happen to watch, you know, an actual, well, I shouldn't say actual, like a traditional sport, if I know nothing about it, like I don't watch a lot of sports. I don't know that much about hockey or baseball or football or whatever.
Yeah.
But if the actual like announcers and the crowd and stuff can really get you hyped up, that's exciting. Even if you don't understand what the hell is going on, it's like it's empathy or something. Just seeing and feeling and hearing someone else get all just pumped up about it, that makes a huge difference. Like with our show, if we talk all animated and so on, you know, we get really emotional and really invested in our discussions and arguments and whatever. And, you know, like, if I recommend a game for you and you hate it, I'm like, all right, well, fuck you, Tony, you piece of shit. If we did more of that, we would get so many views because people get so excited about that. It rubs off. It's, yeah. I think the word is empathy, but that's, they have that down. Like, I haven't watched as much esports as you, but from what I have watched, like I've said this before, I don't play Dota. I've played like one custom map of it, and that's it. I don't know anything about it, but just hearing those commentators do what they do, and they're pretty good at what they do, that made me want to watch. And that, I think, is probably the most promising thing that I've seen for esports. It's already got enough steam that it's definitely going to go somewhere no matter what they do at this point. But
yeah.
they're going to easily hook a lot of new watchers just because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll probably be a while before we see like esports tournaments broadcast on regular ESPN, because that's going to piss people off that don't really care about it, I'm certain.
Get these nerds off my TV.
Their 50th rerun of the Sports Center episode of the day is going to get pushed back because of that, and they're going to be angry. But it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah.
I would like to see it go more in the like League of Legends style direction, where it's like a real, like, legitimate professional thing. Like when you watch it, you can make ridiculous comparisons to sports. Like, yeah, this looks like I'm watching a football season, basically.
Yeah. I want to see the replays where they put the play up on screen and slow it down, and then they have a guy with like a tablet.
They have John Madden. He's drawing circles on the play.
Oh, he should have come on over here because then they could have tackled him from this side and dropped his ult and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
that's what I want. That's real sports right there.
Yeah, it'll be cool. I'm excited to see where it goes in the next year, because I mean, it's hard to ignore a tournament that had an $18 million prize pool, no matter what it is.
It's becoming a really big deal. So
the fact that the people who won this tournament got $6.6 million, that's like something that most people cannot ignore. That's a really big deal. We should get into the trade-in, though, because we're already about to hit an hour. So
we are, in fact, on my OBS counter, we are just over an hour and 30 seconds, in fact.
You started a little early. Recording's at 58 minutes, so...
Fair okay.
To be fair, this trade-in is going to be fairly short. You played a good bit of your game. I didn't play very much of mine. So I had, what is it, Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast?
That's the one.
That's the game. I couldn't really... It was really hard for me to get into this game. And I didn't... I said I was going to play up until the point where you got your force powers, and I did not. And the biggest issue with that is it was a chore for me to even think about starting the game up to get to that point. I played like 2 missions of Jedi Outcast, and so the game is really hard. First of all, I would like to bring that up, at least until you get your force powers. Like, the beginning of the game is incredibly hard. Like, I was turning corners and there'd be like 5 stormtroopers, and I'd take almost all my health and damage just trying to kill them, because like when I point my gun at them, half the shots don't hit them anyway, because even if you're pointing your gun directly at something, the bullets like go far. I was the stormtrooper basically, and they were the hero in the game. Like, I couldn't hit a shot to save my life. They couldn't miss a shot if I was fucking, doing backflips and flying through the air. So like I felt like every time I had an encounter with some stormtroopers, I would have to like run around and hunt for like a health pack or something. And I got a little bit better at it by the time I came to the end, but it was like it was too little too late for me. Like the intro kind of it drug on for me. I mean, the graphics are nothing pretty, but that doesn't really bother me all that much. The gameplay, until at least until you get your force powers, is really stock standard, boring like shooter gameplay. I kept getting lost. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know. I spent like 30 minutes trying to figure out what I was supposed to do because I found this symbol in the first level and it says enter this symbol at the generator, and I was like, okay. So like I go to the generator area and I'm like trying to activate it and it's like it's shut off. I'm like, so what do I do now? So I start running around. There was an area that I had to go to. Actually, I found it eventually. There is an elevator that just looks like a regular piece of the floor. Doesn't really look like an elevator. There's a console next to it that should signify that it's an elevator. And if I was paying more attention, I probably would have noticed that. But so I go down in there and I can't see anything. And I'm like, well, what do I do now? I don't know where to go. And it took me like another 10 minutes to find a box that I could open that had these night vision goggles in them, basically. And at that point, I was able to get through to where I needed to go, and I had to walk all this way just to open this door, basically, so that I could progress through an area I had already been to. So I had to spend another 5 minutes hunting for that area to find out what door I opened. It's definitely, I won't say it's a bad game, but it's definitely an old game, and it suffers from a lot of the kind of like game tropes and stuff that games of that time suffered from.
Yeah.
Really hard, lots of backtracking, little to no guidance ever.
That's a good point. It is from an era where, well, how do I say this? In shooters that are released today, you know, in the last few years, like this and the previous generation of consoles, that kind of time frame, those shooters, more modern ones, they have a lot of conveniences that we're all used to at this point that have just become the standard, like cover systems and stuff like that, regenerating health, things like that, where actually developers have run into, you know, the reason that they switched to these standards is because they were having problems with games like what you've been running into, and they don't want you to have an encounter and then run around for 10 minutes looking for a health pack so that you can progress. Like that's, if you ever go back and look at some early shooters with, around the time regenerating health started becoming more prevalent in shooters, that's always the reason that they cite. Like they don't want people to just feel unnecessarily frustrated. And like you mentioned, like you started getting better as you became more accustomed to that kind of shooter gameplay. So it's definitely a different breed of shooter, I think.
Yeah.
That it takes more getting used to, I suppose.
It's not necessarily that I want it super easy. Like some shooters nowadays are really easy. Like, you know, you just hide behind a wall and you're fine after a big shootout. But there's a middle ground there. Like, I don't want, you know, the game to put a giant marker on my screen that tells me exactly where to go. Yeah. But at the same time, I do want it to at least give me some kind of information, like maybe some text in my journal that tells me where I need to go, or a character saying to me where I need to go. Not just, here you fucking go, figure it out yourself. So there's definitely a middle ground there that I would like, and because I'm going to lose interest at the same time if it's too easy, you know? If I don't ever have to like pay attention to the game, it just tells me exactly where to go. Mass Effect has that problem a lot. It's, you know, there's just a big icon in the middle of your screen that tells you exactly where to go. So there's little to no exploration. I still explore in those kind of games, but
yeah, that was actually that's a big difference between Morrowind and Skyrim. Well, probably Oblivion too. But in Morrowind, there wasn't a compass where you could just look and say, oh, I have to walk in this direction to get to what I need to do. Yeah. You would actually get journal entries, and you had to decipher them. And, you know, NPCs would tell you, go right on this road and then walk north, and it's the third cave on the left. Like, they would give you directions like that, and they weren't always that accurate. So, you know, you'd actually get lost some of the time. And that's sort of on the other end of the scale. I think I would also like to have that kind of description if they're actually accurate. And then Skyrim comes around, and again, it might have been in Oblivion too. I only played Oblivion like once. It's not a major game in my memory. But like they have the compass indicators where you don't have to do any thinking at all. You just go, oh, okay, that's where I have to go. Boop, 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 and you just walk towards it.
And I can understand that. Like when I'm playing MMOs like WoW, and I do every once in a while, I like to level a character up on WoW and like not really pay attention to my quest markers, just read the quest text, because the quest text will tell you where you need to go. But I mean, at the same time, I'm trying to get to the max level so that I can play the actual game in World of Warcraft. So like, I don't really want to burn my time reading all these quests. I just want to know where to go. But
Yeah.
with Jedi Outcast, I felt like I would go to an area and Jan would be like, "Okay, we need to explore this station," and that's it. That's all the guidance I would get is explore the station, and it's like, okay.
All right.
So it was really hard for me to like have the desire to play that game again when I closed out of it. I think I only played 2 sessions of it just because like once I was in it, it was okay, but I just
Yeah.
it felt like a chore to start the game up, and at that point, that's that's kind of where I came from with the like 2 week thing. At the same time, if it feels like a job, but it's not a job, I don't really want to do it, and I don't want to if I feel like if I don't want to play the game enough to start it up, that's indicative enough for me to make a decision on the trade in. So like I would like to play it again, but I probably won't. I'm probably not going to start the game up again. I don't know anything about the story because I clearly didn't get to that point.
Yeah,
there was another part where a bridge blew up in front of me while I was walking across it, and I couldn't cross it, and I couldn't figure out where I needed to go from that point. I actually had to look up a guide online that told me, "Oh, go back to the room before. There will be an elevator open now." It wasn't open before, but it'll be open now. So like for like 10 minutes, and I messaged you and I was like, I don't really know where to go, and you were like, I'm not sure where you're at. You might be able to go over the bridge. Like you didn't know either, like specifically, and it's probably been a long time since you played the game, but
yeah, for me, like it's just been ages. I couldn't remember what to do at that point.
But it was
I started looking up online for you. Like I was Googling a walkthrough to be like,
yeah,
all right, can I give him a hint from this?
That's yeah, I had to look it up because I didn't know what to do, and it was like a really obscure, like, oh, there's an elevator that now magically works behind you, so go back to that. Yeah. So it was just, I imagine I would have liked that game if I played it back when it came out, but I just couldn't really get into it.
Yeah, we've grown up a little bit. It's we're so accustomed to a different kind of shooter, I guess.
Yeah,
it is a little harder to get into at this point. My game I thought was okay. I played Batman Arkham City, and like you, I didn't finish it. That's not really out of the ordinary for me with these games, but you know, I put in maybe 4 or 5 hours of it, and I think I'm like, I'm trying to remember what my completion percentage was, but I thought above all else, one thing this game did really, really well was make you feel like Batman. And that seems to be a problem in a lot of games where it's a game about a superhero or something, or you know, an established character where they give you some of the tools of the trade, but you don't really feel like you're that person. You just kind of feel like you're going through the motions of any other game. Now, I think my favorite part of this game was the grappling hook. Okay, this was the best part for me. The combat was okay. Yeah.
Did you get the upgrade for the grappling hook called the grapnel? Did you make it to that point?
Maybe. What did that do?
So it's when you grapple something with the grapnel, you can double tap the grapple button while you're in the air, and it shoots you up to your grapple target. Instead of you just like slowly gliding up like the normal grapple does, it shoots you, and it shoots you over the target. So like when you're navigating the city, you can shoot up over a building and then pop your cape out and glide down through the city. That really opens the game up to me, that grapnel upgrade.
I did get that, and
I love that thing.
They did it so well with being able to just let you loose in the city, and you never feel like you're without something that you can grapple onto and keep flying. You can actually sustain your movement really, really well in this game. They didn't do like the Assassin's Creed route, I think, where they just kind of make literally every object climbable and let you just go.
It's not a Spider-Man game where you're in open air and you shoot a web up in the air and it just, like, what does it, stick to a plane or something? The really old Spider-Man games used to do that. Like you could shoot your web at anything, even if there were no buildings around you, and you were just like,
there was a word for that. I think they called it moon slinging or cloud slinging or something. Like it didn't matter. You could be out in like the fucking country and you could still do it.
There is a Spider-Man game called Spider-Man 1 for PS1. The first level, you're like on top of these skyscrapers way up in the clouds. There's literally nothing. Like you're at the top of skyscrapers. There's nothing above you, but you can grapple anywhere that you want. Or not grapple, but web sling.
Because video games, and it's fun. Now, there are still, like, you can get yourself into a situation where there is nothing to grapple to, and the game will tell you that. It'll be like, there's no target, you can't do that. So you actually are grappling onto specific things like
Yep.
gargoyles and rooftops and stuff. But there's so many of them that you don't feel like you're ever really choked for somewhere to get away to. Some of the stealth stuff was kind of a little off. I thought is very very easy stealth. Like a room will be clearly obviously lit. I know Batman, he's got lots of gadgets in his mask and stuff,
Yeah.
but you'll be up in a rafter and there'll be a guy who walking by who would really be able to see you, but he just can't because you're in the special
Yeah.
hiding spot.
Now,
So that took me out of it a little bit. And you make a lot of noise when you swing around as well.
Yeah.
Your grappling hook does, and they don't hear it at all. I don't know. I played on whatever the normal difficulty was. I don't know if that
Yeah.
gets harder with a higher difficulty
possibly.
level. But
I don't know. I
it
always
might.
play those games on normal anyway. And see,
Yeah.
what brought you out of it is what really draws me into it. Is I don't mind it being easy because I'm playing this character, Batman, this ridiculous like crime fighter, and it
Yeah.
really like when the stealth parts are easy, it really makes you feel like Batman because you fly from one gargoyle to another and you drop down and grab this guy and hang him from the gargoyle and people hear him yell, but you're already on a different gargoyle at that point. You're like watching
Yeah.
them and like you're picking them off one by one, like slowly. That's the coolest thing for me. Like you can get under these vents and like you jump out of the vent, punch a guy in the face, and then jump back into the vent and just run away. And
Now, I
like
was complaining about the stealth, but the stealth actually also had one of my favorite things. There was a section of the game where I'm fighting some of the Penguin's guys, his hired goons.
Yeah.
And the Penguin equips all of his dudes with heartbeat sensors. So when one of them gets knocked out,
Yeah.
it's you can't just kill him in the perfect, well, not kill, but you can't just incap him in the perfect spot and then he's not a problem anymore. If you incapacitate any of his henchmen, that alerts them after a few seconds, and then they start to look for you. But what I liked about that was they'll go and they'll find the guy, and it doesn't immediately spawn like, oh, there's an alarm, and now here's 15 more enemies coming to smoke you out.
Yeah.
What happens was they'll see the enemy, and they'll do some basic AI, which is available in most stealth games. They'll be like, oh no, you knocked out one of our guys. Let's go find him.
Yeah.
And then they'll go and look for you. If you then incapacitate a second guy in the same area, they'll find him and be like, oh shit, he got another one. Like it's contextual.
And they
It's
start
pretty
to
smart.
panic too.
They
like
panic, yeah, they freak
when
out.
you get the first guy, if there's like 5 guys and you knock one of them out, they're like, "We know you're up there somewhere." They'll
Yeah.
start shooting their gun randomly to try and make you come out. But the more of them you pick off, the more of them you pick off, the more panicked the remaining guys get, and they get to the point where they're just like, "Huh, where is he? Where is he?" And they're like whipping around in circles and like shooting their gun at random things that they see moving.
Yep.
And
eventually they give up. If you can, I did this to one section. If you knock out everybody else in that section, or at least that's what I did, I just walked up to the last guy and he just gave up. Like he surrendered. It was really cool.
That's definitely
there were like three bodies on the ground in front of him. It was all right.
Yeah, that's definitely where one of the things where it makes you feel the most like Batman, where you're using like fear as a weapon, basically.
Yeah.
Which is that's like Batman's specialty right there.
That's his MO.
So you're like
he strikes fear. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like picking off random people and like making the other guys panic, and that sort of thing I'm really into when it comes to like stealth games. And that's the same thing that I really liked about Alpha Protocol. The stealth is easy. It's not like so easy that you could just do it with your eyes closed, but it's easy enough that it makes you feel so empowered. Like it really hits, like especially with Arkham City, it hits on the point of the game, which is to make you feel like Batman. And you really feel like Batman. You feel most like Batman when you're doing the stealth stuff, and you're like picking these guys off, and they don't stand a fucking chance. It's just like Batman. I mean, the henchmen never stand a chance against Batman. That's Batman. Like it has to be like Joker himself to put up a fight, or you have to be like fighting Bane or something. Otherwise,
in most of the moments for the stealth, though, I did kind of feel the way that you felt about it. Like if I'm sneaking up behind a guy. Okay, yeah, I realize he's Batman. He'll be dead silent, right? If he wants to be. So that doesn't bother me at all. Only when I'm doing things that are clearly, like, audibly loud. Yeah. And then they would still be, like, totally none the wiser. Okay, well, all right, whatever. Then I have to kind of suspend my disbelief.
There's stuff that you can do in Arkham City. Like, you can fuck with the guards. Like, if you're perched up on a gargoyle, you can, like, throw a batarang at a guard. And it doesn't really do anything. The batarangs don't really do damage. Sometimes they'll stun the guy. But if you hit a guy, like, in the back with a batarang, he'll like, what the hell was that? He starts, like, freaking out. And he's like, what's going on here? Where's Batman? And, like, you can just fuck with these guys. And you can really get them out of position to pick them off. And there's a lot of like thought that goes into the stealth sequences. Like I would find myself sitting on a gargoyle for like 5 minutes, and I would just be watching the guards, and I'd be like, okay, so when this guy hits this point in his patrol, I can pick him off, and then I can move on to this guy because there won't be anybody to see him. It's really like more than like Metal Gear Solid or something. I really like put a lot of thought into the stealth sections. Like, this is how I'm going to do this, and I plan the whole thing out ahead of time. And sometimes it'll go way wrong, and everything gets fucked up, and I have to like on the fly. Yeah. But that's like my favorite part about those games is it really you just feel like Batman when you're playing those Batman games.
Yeah, definitely. I will say that my taste of this game has made me really want to finish the rest, and it's made me feel a lot better about the Arkham series in general. Like before, it was always a series that I assumed would be probably pretty good, with a high budget and good production values and that kind of thing, like you assume of most AAA games. But this really actually gave me a drive to keep playing. So I think I'm going to finish definitely Arkham City. Eyes open for Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight, I think, looks kind of dumb just because you can like run people over in the Batmobile. And
no, they live though. They live though.
Well, yeah, they're okay.
They're fine.
But you can fucking run them over and blow them up with rockets and shit.
I wouldn't mind playing Arkham Knight. I'm iffy on the whole Batmobile thing because I feel like the most fun part of the open world is grappling around from building to building. So, like, I don't really want to drive the car. Like, it's there, but I'm wondering how much I actually have to use it because I'm probably not going to use it all that much. Even if it is, like, a really cool experience, kind of takes away from what the Batman game is for me. Also, I can't buy Arkham Knight on PC, and that's what I would want to play it on. So, when they fix the game, maybe we'll see about playing it.
We'll think about it. Maybe that'll be a share.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it a trade
one of these weeks
when they fix it and it's on sale again.
So, speaking of the trade-in, what are our plans for next week?
So, for this trade-in, this will be the first in our little experiment of 2-week trade-ins.
Yes.
We are going to be doing different games, and I have picked out a game that I want to assign you. Excuse me. Related to some Gamescom stuff. So they showed a lot of XCOM 2 footage at Gamescom. They showed some screenshots. Really cool screenshots. If you've played the new XCOM, I really like it. It's one of my favorite tactical games. It's not like brutally nails hard like most of these tactics games are. It's still hard. And if you play it on the higher difficulties, you will get bullshitted constantly. There will be enemies that you have a 25% chance to hit, and from their spot, they will hit you every shot. On higher difficulties in the normal XCOM, some of the aliens just have naturally higher hit modifiers. So, like, I don't want to go too much into it. I will be assigning Matt not the first XCOM game. I will be assigning him the newer XCOM game, XCOM Enemy Unknown, I think it's called.
Enemy Unknown.
And there's DLC called Enemy Within. I would like you to buy that if you are fine with it and play it with that DLC because it adds a lot to the game.
I'll look into it. I know I have.
You have the base game at least.
Steam. I just never played it.
Yeah.
So I think I picked that up in a Humble Bundle actually.
So I would look into the DLC and see if you can get it fairly cheap because I really think that it adds a lot to the experience. The DLC adds like you can get your guys modified so that they have like these plugs on their body and they can get into these big mech suits and they turn into like these fucking unstoppable juggernauts. You can get genetic mods on your guys, so like you can get a mod where like they can see through the fog of war with like their eye modification or whatever. They have augmented vision. Their vision is augmented. It really adds like a whole new layer. It adds different missions and stuff, so it's really worth the pickup, I think. But so there's an enemy called the Thin Man, and you'll meet him pretty early into your XCOM adventures. Okay. And he just naturally he has a 25% higher chance to hit. So no matter what his hit chance would be, there's 25% added onto it. And I think they have a minimum hit chance of 75%. So like you will get bullshitted in this game. But it's really fun. It's permadeath, so if you lose a guy in the fight, they're dead. You have to replace them with a different soldier. And you have like a memorial wall that you can go to, and it shows what mission the person died in and like how many missions they had been on before. It's a really good tactical game, though. XCOM 2 looks great, but I want you to play the first one because when XCOM 2 comes out, I want us to play that one for a trade-in. So.
Oh yeah, and I know we got there's a lot of details coming out for XCOM 2. So I'll play this, and then definitely in a future episode we can get into it a little better. Maybe even in 2 weeks when we discuss the trade and stuff again.
Yep, I want to talk about XCOM 2. That's also a reason that I'm assigning.
It would be nice to to be able to tie that in. So
I
I'm looking
think
forward to that.
I think you're gonna like it. I don't know how much experience you have with tactical games, but I know you've played like the original Fallout games and you liked them, and it's kind of similar to
Oh yeah.
that, but with a squad. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a really cool game to just kind of like pick up and do a couple missions in too, if you're not really sure what you're feeling like playing.
Yeah. Well, I like Fallout Tactics a lot. That was actually, believe it or not, my first Fallout game. My brother owned that and 1 and 2 as well. And I just played that one first, and that's a squad-based one as well. And it also has that permadeath, where if you lose a squad member, that's it, they're gone. So I do have some experience with it, and because I like those games so much, that's kind of why I'm looking forward to this. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for it, and I'm probably going to get started on that right away.
I highly recommend playing on normal difficulty your first time. So there's easy, which I wouldn't recommend because it's not really the full experience. There's normal, there's classic, and then there's like impossible. And classic is insanely hard. I've never played impossible, but I can only fucking imagine, because with classic, like, the thing about XCOM is I don't remember if they changed this in Enemy Within. The aliens on the map are not triggered until you get line of sight on them. So there's a lot of tactic that comes into like positioning your troops. You don't want to push them up too far and trigger an enemy, especially if you've already burned your turns on all your other guys. Yeah. So like you want to make sure that you're moving up kind of slow, keeping your guys together. You get a move action and a shoot action, basically, unless you're a sniper. Snipers cannot move and shoot. But so what you have is you can move really far, or you can move to a certain distance and also shoot. And you never want to move all your guys to it's called dashing if you go past your move distance, and you can't shoot after that. You never want to dash all your guys up, because if you trigger an alien, you're fucked, because they get like... You get no shots on them, basically. So there's a lot of tactical stuff to it. And
well, don't worry. I've done, like I said, Fallout Tactics was my big thing. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of setup involved in that. It works the same way as what you're describing. Don't tell me too much about the game. I'll see. I'll go in blind and see how I do.
I'll say it's not too painful if you're playing on normal. In Classic, if you fuck up, like on turn 1, the whole thing is like a fucking shit show. Like, you were gonna have to pull some stuff out of your ass to survive that encounter. So I would recommend normal. If you finish normal and you really liked it, classic is a nice difficulty bump. But it's like the jump in difficulty from normal to classic is insane. Like there should be like 2 more difficulties between those two, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll just do it on normal. That's usually how I go into just new games. I try them on whatever the default is and see how I do.
Yeah, I think you're going to enjoy it.
Now, as for you, I'm going to be assigning you Enslaved Odyssey to the West. And this is a game that I think originally didn't come out on PC. I want to say
no, it was Xbox. I'm pretty sure
it was Xbox, and was it only Xbox or was it PS3 as well?
I think it was just 360 originally.
Okay. So this is a, I guess it's a modern rendition of Journey to the West. It's not a modern, like setting. It's a futuristic setting, but it's a retelling of that story. The same idea where you have like this warrior character who is the guy that you play. His name's Monkey. And he's sort of forced into servitude, I haven't actually completed this game, but I've played a lot of it, and I really, really like it. This was back when I guess I must have had it on 360 or whatever it was, because I played it, just not on PC.
It did come out on PS3 as well.
Okay, so it was most likely PS3 then, but I don't like console action games as much or something. I don't know what my deal is, so I didn't really finish it, but I liked the game a lot. And I actually plan on finishing it on PC since I own it on Steam as well.
Yeah, it is actually, there's a Humble Bundle going on right now that has Enslaved in it, as well as some other games. So if you're interested at all, go to the Humble Bundle website. That's where we got it. So
also, Journey to the West is just a pretty fucking cool story. So
yeah,
I think you'll enjoy it a lot. It's like an action game. I don't want to compare it to Batman, which I know you're familiar with, but it's the same sort of, like you could play with a gamepad, right?
It's made by Ninja Theory, so I assume it's kind of like the newer Ninja Gaiden games. Ninja Gaiden.
There you go.
Oops. So we'll see. I think I'll enjoy it, and I'm going to give it more of a shot, I'm sure, since I have 2 weeks. So
yeah, now that we have our 2-week thing going, I think you'll get some good gameplay into it. I think I say this every time, but I think you'll enjoy this more than the games I've assigned you in the past for the most part. I think you'll be happy with it. I don't have much more else to say about it. Like I said, I didn't play it through to completion, which I really should do on my own as well. I'd love to play that game again, and now I own it on Steam, so I'm definitely going to do that too. But I'm eager to hear your thoughts. I'd like to know what you have to say about this thing.
Yep.
So yeah, enjoy it. I don't know if there's any DLC or anything. Like, I have no knowledge of anything else about the game beyond pretty much what I've just told you. So yeah, you're going to be playing that, and I hope you enjoy it, my friend. It'll be a good time.
Alrighty.
And speaking of time, that pretty much does it for us. Once again we've run over a little bit. Only about half an hour or so.
Pretty significantly.
Big
but
deal.
To be fair, we didn't have a podcast last week, so we had some stuff saved up.
Yeah, had a bit of catching up to do, but we're back. We are going to be still streaming weekly. I would imagine, we haven't really talked about this, but probably on the off weeks where we're not talking in depth about the trade-in, they'll probably end up being slightly shorter, I would imagine. But, we'll see. As you can see, we still run well over an hour on most of these anyway, so who knows?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to touch on real quick before we finish up?
Don't think so.
Okay.
I think that's about it.
Yeah, so once again, thanks for watching, everybody. We've had people dropping in throughout the show, just talking in chat and stuff. We've been meaning to involve the Twitch chat more, and we never do because we always get so into these discussions with each other.
Yeah.
And I am so sorry for the Twitch audience. Like there was a couple guys in there that were asking some questions. To answer one real quick, no, I don't think I'm related to Mike Hunt. I don't know who that is, but I hope he's a handsome guy. But we are going to make an effort to do more of that at some point. We'll see how it goes. Like we said at the start, and have been saying this whole time, we're kind of playing this by ear. So we'll see how we feel, I guess. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter. We're doing automated tweets right now. They just announce whenever the show's starting.
That.
But we might, do more individual ones. More personal tweets. Man, that's weird to say. I don't do this whole social networking stuff.
Don't worry, I'll handle it. I'm going to stop the automated
you
ones.
can take care of that, yeah. But you can tweet us if you have any questions or suggestions of things to talk about. It's at GNGN Podcast. And we do check the Twitter, as Tony mentioned on, I think, the last episode. We don't check our Twitch account that often, or our YouTube. It's mostly going to be just Twitter. That'll be the most convenient platform for us to hear from you and for us to respond to you.
Yeah.
And
that guy in the chat, tweet us pictures of my cunt.
There you go. Yeah. So, whatever you got, bring it on. Let's do it. So you can follow us there, and of course you can subscribe to Twitch and our YouTube channel. Also, Tony always puts up edited versions of each episode that we do that have had our various technical difficulties kind of polished out. Not always edited, but when it needs to be done.
This one probably won't be because there's not really anything that needs to be edited in this one. So
yeah, this was pretty smooth. Yes. We mentioned before, we switched off of Skype and now we're on much more stable video chat software. So it's going pretty well.
We're not having the big issues that we were before. So
yeah, it's going pretty good so far. So that pretty much wraps it up. Thanks again for watching, everybody. And as always, you can catch us live pretty much every Sunday evening at 7 o'clock Eastern right here at twitch.tv/GNGN podcast. And, you want to say goodbye, Tony?
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. See you guys next week.
So long, everybody.